started with my childhood. I were craving people with high IQs.
EQ is not something that is learned in school level. It is not taught actually.
There'll always be this demand for authentic human connection, and this will only grow, reinforcing the value of emotional intelligence in leadership.
They might have different religion, culture, backgrounds, but
Correct.
emotions remain the same.
Emotions drive behaviors, and our behaviors drive our work.
So what are the ways as an individual, how do we become self-aware? Hi everyone, I'm Mohsinaa Ahmad. Welcome to yet another inspiring episode of Boss Talks. Today we have Reema Darras, who has over a decade of experience as a program management specialist at Cisco and is an expert in emotional intelligence, specializing in guiding leaders through the complexities of modern leadership. Having worked closely with C-level executives, she has seen firsthand how EQ transforms leadership, decision-making, and team dynamics. Reema's passion for emotional intelligence was reignited during the pandemic when she explored the science of emotional intelligence. Since then, she has dedicated herself to helping others unlock the power of emotional intelligence, an essential skill that enhances both personal fulfillment and professional effectiveness. Based in Dubai, as a US expat, Reema regularly collaborates with high-performing teams from diverse cultural backgrounds, gaining invaluable perspective that enrich her work.
During her role at Cisco,
cloud and artificial intelligence infrastructure solutions, she has developed deep expertise in AI technologies and their transformative applications. She advocates for integrating essential human elements such as emotional intelligence and ethical decision making to ensure trust, adaptability, and alignment with human-centric principles. A seasoned speaker, Reema has championed keynote delivery within and outside Cisco, inspiring leaders and teams to harness EQ for peak performance and meaningful impact. She is PMP certified and ORSC Fundamentals Team System Coach and a certified facilitator with the Urbanger Institute, implementing an outward mindset. Reema brings a unique blend of experience, empathy, and actionable insights, empowering audiences to rethink their human skills and create environments where people feel seen, heard, and valued. How are you, Reema?
Hi, Mohsinaa. Nice to see you. Good morning. I'm well, thank you.
So, Reema, can you please tell us that, how did you start emotional intelligence as your passion to impart it? How did you notice that there was a need for emotional intelligence? You were working with Cisco. Where was the need you saw and you imparted that knowledge?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mohsinaa, for having me on, and thank you for the incredible work you're doing on your Boss Talks. I think it started with my childhood. I were craving people with high IQs. And so I always followed the nerds, and I was very overwhelmed and excited about how smart they were. And so I made it a mission wherever I'm in life that I'll be surrounded by people with high IQs who are really, really highly intelligent, those that went to Ivy League backgrounds and those that were doing great, high performing teams. And so what I started to notice, it wasn't more about their expertise, even though that played a big role, but it was mostly about the way they lead. And what was that? That was not something that you can get a degree on. It was how they're empowering teams. And what was that skill set? And that's how I discovered something as beautiful as emotional intelligence, which is something people can learn how to develop and build on skills. And so that's where I am now. I'm an EQ or EI enthusiast and promoting the greatness of it.
You are absolutely right. When you said this, that IQ is something that you look up to, while growing up, because we are taught IQ. We are taught to think logically. We are taught to think, intelligently. And when we are not, they name us, right? That, she's not at par to the intelligence level. But when it comes to EQ, it is not something that is learned in school level. It is not taught, actually. So how did you think that this was important in terms of leadership? Where did you see the lag?
Well, first of all, I was with global teams from multiple different cultural backgrounds. And so that's where EI played an important role. I think if you look at it 10 years ago, EI was seen as a soft skill. It was nice to have. Usually it was only for leadership training. People looked at it as some sort of a communication, nice to have skill. But if you fast forward today, it's become a core element of business strategy. And more leaders are very much aware of the science. They're delved into it. So if you look at, for example, the most read article on Harvard Business Review, it's on emotional intelligence. And the title of it, What Makes a Leader? And it's written by our emotional intelligence guru, Professor Danielle Goldman. And so that's showing you how it's playing a major role in perceptions about EI, particularly in leadership. But when you think of emotional intelligence, people think emotional usually has a negative connotation. But when you look at emotional intelligence, it's usually a strength that people are not aware of, because it's not about being emotional. It's about learning how to use your emotions to change your behaviors, to impact people by understanding their emotions to get the strategy or the influence that you want to do. So when you use all of these skill sets, you're able to build empathy, resilience, and the ability to navigate uncertainty, which is now more crucial than ever in our fast-paced world.
That's so true. Reema, please tell us that, what actionable steps can leaders take to proactively develop emotional intelligence and foster a culture of empathy and understanding within teams or when dealing with teams?
It's multifaceted, it's multi-layered, what you can do. Emotional intelligence first focuses on the self, and you have to be very self-aware. So they did studies with the most successful CEOs out there. They found out that the most successful ones were the one who knew what their strengths were and what their weaknesses was. And they acknowledged that. Where they need work on, where they need to fill the gap, they either upscaled themselves or they hired a workforce to fill that gap. And so when you're able to be there as a leader to understand your strengths and weaknesses, you're better at making business decisions. You're able to look at the objective of your company and your role, and you're more authentic. Actually, there are programs out there just to train CEOs on self-awareness. And people are now equating that to having an MBA degree. So that is, I think, very, very crucial. So you start with the self, and then you notice that some of the leaders in the workplace, they're able to self-soothe. They're able to conquer fear and anger. They don't get angry all the time. They understand that. They know how to navigate and regulate themselves. And they're the ones that are calm when there's chaos environments. There's always that person in a meeting or a call where they're able to diffuse like bad energy in the room. They're able to bring everyone back into perspective. They're the ones that are probably saying, you know what, this is getting too heated. Let's take a break. Let's go refresh, come back and think of a new solutions. So they're always looking for solutions. They're not blaming others. There's a lot of things that you can pick up on highly emotional, intelligent leaders. And so that's another thing that we work with how they use their emotions to behave differently. And then we delve into social awareness. We delve into how to read a room and how to understand people's emotions and how to work with that. So with those skill sets, you're able to influence, you communicate better, you handle conflict management better, and you're great when it comes to team empowerment.
Rightly put, and so powerful, actually, if it's implemented in the right way. So what are organizations today doing? How are they creating an environment where emotionally intelligent people are also getting leadership positions? Is it an important part of being a leader?
Yes, I think people have definitely recognized that. And especially in today's world, leaders and companies are putting a lot of impact into emotional intelligence, especially after the pandemic. So with the pandemic, which is now 5 years old, we all went through a personal struggle. We all had our personal battles, and we all had a fear for a loved one. We felt disconnected. Remote was here to stay. We needed our companies, our managers, our teams to see us and feel valued. And so companies were great at this. They recognized that. They took proactive steps to maintain connection. And so you saw more virtual team building exercises. You saw more one-on-one check-ins just to say, how are you doing? How's everything at your end? You saw more leaders, even CEOs with big, massive companies who are just doing a monthly check-in with the global team to see how everybody's doing. And then they'll start sharing photos of themselves and their kids and their dogs. And we started to see the human behind the boss, the manager. And I think that was a really great lesson that came out of the pandemic. Companies more and more now are looking at ways on how to build teams that are more resilient, and they're actually looking at the mental well-being of their employees. So that has been a great thing that we've learned from the pandemic. So you see a lot of companies bringing in trainings on resiliency. Mental health has become a priority within the workforce, as well as you'll see they're doing more recognition and awards and shout outs. Companies have recognized when they take care of these initiatives, they are able to foster a community of belonging and loyalty. And so that's been working so far, and I hope it will continue to do so in the future.
Tell me one thing, you have worked in diverse multicultural companies and you are in Dubai. So it is the whole world is there. So can you please tell us that how can emotional intelligence be implemented in these organizations where all over the world people come in and they join in?
Well, I must say it's interesting because I think most of my career was with global teams, and we were actually working remote before the pandemic. So we needed to have that high IQ in our leadership. And so people from my team were all over Asia Pac, Middle East, Europe, US, and Canada. And so it was very, very important when we had multicultural backgrounds for our leaders to become self-aware that they need to be curious about other people's backgrounds and traditions. And so initiatives were made to actually get on calls and just share with us, each one, what they do during their traditions, their celebrations, their religious affiliations, and we all celebrated that together as a community. And, our leaders found out there's so much to know more about other cultures. And when we saw that happening, we felt a sense of belonging. So it came from leadership, that curiosity. Another thing that was challenging with global teams was the time zones. Sometimes we'll find ourselves on a 6 a.m. call or 11 p.m. call, and that was sometimes just the norm. But our leaders were self-aware again, acknowledged that, understood that, and then had the discussions about work-life balance with us. They were very mindful about these times, and they tried to make it work for everybody so no one felt afloat. And so these little key factors played a big role in how you manage global teams from multicultural background, and it worked.
That's so very important. I'm sure, some of the organization followed, some didn't follow, and they saw the difference of what you are saying in terms of implementing EQ and understanding people, because emotions are same everywhere. It doesn't matter where is the person coming from. Emotions, when we say human emotions are same everywhere, they might have different religion, culture, backgrounds, but emotions remain the same. So please tell me, did you feel that low down in your life where you thought EQ is really important and I need to focus on this? Was it your personal mission?
Yes, it just fascinated me. I mean, about, what makes a leader charismatic, what makes a leader, how to empower others. So that was just a fascination for me. And it's actually changed my personal life as well. When you're able to understand your emotions and your triggers, you can dive deeper to find out why that's happening. And with time, it becomes better, and you'll be able to handle situations better. So it's great even for your personal life and at work as well. So it's a kind of wisdom, I think. So when you look at EQ, the older you are, the more you've been around, the more you've seen things, the more you know how things are going to end up. And so you're not as surprised as much as when you're younger. And so I think that was things that I'm championing for, is how to build the new generation with EQ skill sets that wise people already know later on in life. So yeah, it's been a passion. And I think there's still so much work to be done when it comes to emotional intelligence. And I believe there's a university in the US, Yale University, that's building a curriculum to enforce in public schools just on emotional intelligence. So there's a lot that can be done in this space.
Reema, I want you to share, did you have any personal experience with EQ that you felt you faced in terms of the corporate career that, the leader could have, or the person in front of you could have handled it better, and you experienced it firsthand? Probably a tipping point where you said, no, this is very important and I should go ahead with it.
Let's just give an example. EQ teaches you to see people as people, and you are really good with empathy. And so when you're having a bad day, for example, how do you manage your emotions? And you're going to get pings and emails throughout that time. And then you're going to start telling yourself I don't have time for for this. I don't have time for so and so. I need to focus on this. I have priorities. They don't know what I'm doing, all that stuff. You start to look at things as a perspective, and you start to look at your work as a team. It's not just only you. And if someone is asking for something, they might have a deadline as well. And they might have challenges too. And then your contribution with their contribution makes your team better. And so that self-regulation of thinking, of empathizing with others, and being able to build those impactful relationships help you strive more. So a lot of people come in with me, and then they turn into talking about we and how can we grow together. And so just that self-regulation was key with a lot of the work that I had to be doing during my career.
With the buzz of AI in workplace, there's a lot of talks going on. So how do you see the role of emotional intelligence play its part in this environment?
Well, Mohsinaa, I think when we looked at this questions a few months ago, it was a buzzword, but now I don't think it's the case. It's here to stay, and it's making headline news. I think we've all become best friends with ChatGPT, and now everyone's talking about DeepSeek as well. But I did watch some of Davos's World Economic Forum last week, and the prevailing theme there was the AI models and agents will soon surpass human intelligence in a few years. So we're talking about sciences, math, the arts, creative writing. We're talking about architecture, and that's scary. That's someone's whole work in terms of degrees and PhD. And so and someone actually did mention that human intelligence is going to be valued at $0 in a few years. So what's going to be a premium? If we ask ourselves this, what's going to be sought out for the premium? It is at the end, your human skills. So it is basically your human intelligence or emotional intelligence skills. So the true question lies in your leadership, your ability to read a room, like building trusts with your clients, your intuition, that AI cannot predict. For example, take a company that's bringing in an AI agent to complete the performance reviews for their teams. And so the AI agent will come in and look at deliverables, sales quotas, and all of that, and then decide for your team members who gets a bonus, who doesn't get a bonus. But you still need that human element of unbiasedness. And so that will always be premium going forward. Davos, also, the World Economic Forum, released the future of work for 2025. And do you know what was the top 5 core skill sets that are required for this year? You'll be surprised. It was all emotional intelligence. So they were analytical thinking, resilience, and agility, leadership and social influence, motivation, self-awareness, empathy, curiosity, and active listening. All of that is emotional intelligence. And so that's the skill that people and leaders will start to build. They'll find that gap, and they're going to have to upskill their teams on that. I guess when you look at AI in the future, a lot of futurists, I think that you're asking for empathy, and we all need empathy within the workplace. We will know when empathy is genuine or when it's artificial, and we're smarter than that. And so we will still need empathetic leaders. This is just my 2 cents of skepticism, even though I know AI is going to create great stuff for our world. I do want to close with, there'll always be this demand for authentic human connection, and this will only grow, reinforcing the value of emotional intelligence in leadership and customer relationships for our world to be a better place than it was yesterday.
Amazing, amazing. So what are the ways as an individual, how do I become self-aware, or the viewers, the listeners that we have, how do we become self-aware?
Thanks for that question. It's a great question. So what we teach our clients is that we teach them several skills and little tips and tricks for self-regulation. So we teach them how to understand their emotions and what they're feeling, and to actually articulate that, because once you start articulating your emotion, you're halfway done with diffusing it, almost. And so I feel this way versus I feel that way. Why am I feeling this way? And so we see how we're going to regulate that. So we give them a little bit skills on how to bring more reflectiveness to your emotions, because emotions drive behaviors, and our behaviors drive our work. And so we have to go back to the source to make sure that our behaviors are impacting ourselves and others around us in a positive way. So that's what we work on as well. And we also work on having a little bit of a black book when you're navigating your world, whether it's your coworkers, your boss, or your peers, you have a special book on how to provide better impact in your relationships. You will have specific strategies with each and every team member that you work with, depending on reading them and understanding where they come from and using empathy. And so there's a lot of things that you can be learning to upskill yourself when it comes to emotional intelligence. So yes.
So, Reema, will you please tell me that are organizations going ahead and connecting with experts in emotional intelligence like you? Are they going ahead and are they talking to people like that to handle their corporate culture and making people more self-aware about themselves?
Yes, Mohsinaa, I think it's becoming more in demand now more than ever in the past. There's been a lot of interest for companies to bring in keynote speakers and trainers about self-awareness, emotional intelligence, because it's become a strategic business decision making at the top level. And then, if you can work with conflict management and high employee turnover, there is a lot of skill building that you can do to help face those challenges. And so, yeah, companies now more than ever are understanding the value of emotional intelligence, and they're investing in it as well. So yes.
So, Reema, as a person, how do you create your emotional intelligence, or how are you emotionally aware? Are there any practices that you follow every day? Is there some routine or some journaling that you do?
Yes. Well, Mohsinaa, I think not that I do believe I'm on the spectrum of emotionally intelligence, but everybody has always a long way to grow and become even better and better. But usually people with high emotional intelligence self-motivation. And so they don't wait for others to motivate them. They believe in their strengths. They do the work. And so I self-motivate myself. So in the morning, I love music. And so that's the first thing that I will put on in the morning to get me energized. I love my yoga because that brings me mindfulness as well. And then I take my day as, what can I do today? And there's so much that can be done. And I make it to my best of abilities as well. Try to be as productive as I can. So when at the end of the day, I look back at the day and say, I did so and so and so. And so, and I reflect on the things that happened during the day, the things that probably would have upset me, that doesn't no longer bother me anymore, but used to bother me like a few years ago. And so I'm able to understand how I've changed my behavior in terms of that. But self-motivation is a big one because we all need that.
So, is human mind trainable no matter what age they are in to be emotionally intelligent?
Yes, of course, always. And even if you ask my father, he keeps saying today, he will always be learning something new every day. And so yes, the human mind is definitely changeable and can learn new skills, and we will never stop growing.
Great, amazing podcast, amazing talk. What you have shared today is the need of today's global world that we live in, and more so because we are interacting with so many different personas in the world, and we need to understand each other more on a human level, not on a logical level, because that even AI can do it for us. So, thank you so much, Reema, for an amazing talk.
Thanks, Mohsin. And just be true to yourself, be authentic, lead with grace. Grace is all about having the world a better place. And I really appreciate the time that we spent here today and what you're doing with the theme of empowerment. And thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on my podcast, Boss Talks.